Drem Yol Lok, Difadon.
Greetings, Dovahkin.
Paarthurnax.
Yes, him.
Die Loke lost Paas, Kogan. Zu lost an Lan Fahai.
Speak. I will listen.
Forgive my lack of tact, but how come you are so battered and worn, Master Paarthurnax? DOVAHZUL lost unsla, the dragons are eternal, they do not age. Why have you?
Good question.
And I shall attempt to offer some possible answers to it. But first, allow me to introduce you to my braan bovitaan Dovahkin.
BAHLAAN Fadon. Drem Yol Lok.
Drem Yol Lok nol zei. Zur is Valvo and welcome to my makeshift study here on the snow-strewn summit of the Monahven. Fasni, fear not if you did not bring warmer clothes. I have first prepared here for your comfort beside the fire, and the tent is spacious and rather warm. If none of that works for you, settle underneath Nax's wing, I'm certain he won't mind, or tell me to cast a warming spell on you. I have brought you here today so that we may attempt to uncover the reason behind Paarthurnax's appearance, behind why he shows signs of great age in spite of being a Dova, an immortal Adric being that is meant to be everlasting. I do not believe an introduction to Nax is needed. You all know him quite well.
Of course.
Without further ado, let us focus on the inked pieces of parchment where I have documented my research, and hope none of them catch on fire.
What are you doing?
There is no credible story of how dragons came to be. According to Dremora that the College of Whispers have questioned, they just were and are. Eternal, immortal, unchanging and unyielding. They are not born or hatched. They do not mate or breed. Torghal Bjorek, there be dragons. There is much truth to Torghal Bjorek's words written here, for every Dova we come across in Tamriel shows no signs of Bok, of age, except for one that is, and namely, Paarthurnax. Nax may be ancient.
It is true I am old.
Yeah, but nobody should be able to tell. So what in the name of Oblivion crosses, Nax? What in the name of Akatosh is going on here? Let us begin. Mora now Minda. The first theory is that Paarthurnax is not showing signs of age, but rather that he has been wounded, and not very long ago too. It is no secret that the Monahven is the place where Alduin finally emerges from the time wound, where Nax has been waiting for him for thousands of years. At the very beginning of our story, which would seemingly only last for several minutes, seeing as the only journey we can see ahead of us is that towards the Executioner's block, we can hear dragon roars, most likely coming from the throat of the world.
What was that? It's nothing. Carry on.
Next, the Nord and the Rags.
Here it is again. Did you hear that?
Many Dovahkin suspect that the voices reaching our ears are those of Alduin and Paarthurnax, who are doing battle with one another while we are, quite literally, tied in Helgen. Well, doing battle is synonymous to having a heated debate to a Dova, so we could also say they were unsurprisingly arguing. Even weakened and disorientated, Alduin is still the World Eater, the Twilight God, and his Thuum is the strongest among Dove. If he did fight/argue with Nax before flying over to Helgen, it is logical for Paarthurnax to be battered, for he is still recovering from their Indagrin Tinvak, their intense conversation. As to why his wounds hadn't healed by the time we are permitted to visit him, there are several possibilities, most of which will be discussed at a later time. The first one, nonetheless, is very straightforward, because it had been Alduin who inflicted the damage. His power is immense and devastating, and I would assume it could take a little while longer to recover from Paarthurnax, the World Eater's wrath. A possible weakness of this theory is the question as to why Alduin did not simply kill the traitor who cost him his empire, and I have several possible answers to that. The first one being Alduin is, as I mentioned before, quite disorientated. He has no idea which era he was spat out in by the Tiid-Ahraan, the time wound, and how much time has passed for him during his journey. Seeing a fellow Dova first thing after he returns, even if it is the brother who betrayed him, could have served as a small comfort, hope even, that Dove were still present in and dominant over KUHLMAN'S, Skyrim. Another answer is that he was just too weakened from his journey through the Tiid-Ahraan to kill Paarthurnax, so he did as much damage as he could, and Nax defended himself to the best of his abilities against the assault of the DOVAHZUL, the tomb of his brother. The final one, which is my personal take, and I honestly care not if it sounds naive or overly sentimental, especially because there is actually evidence, small as it may seem, backing it up. Alduin could not bring himself to kill his younger brother. Despite the treachery, Nax is still his skin, the one who was closest to him during his reign, his lieutenant and trusted Fadon. Of course he would be angry. Naturally they would engage in a deadly verbal debate over the past, and yet it would not result in death. The evidence I spoke of is presented by Alduin himself in his dialogue with Nax as he is summoned at the Monahven after the DOVAHZUL reads the Elder Scroll.
Av Uvdir, join me or perish with your mortal friends.
Certainly, he does threaten Nax with death. However, another thing to note is that, in spite of knowing Paarthurnax betrayed him, Alduin still offers him a place beside his older brother, his old king. When we speak to Nax after Alduin's defeat, it is quite clear that our Fadon is in mourning, for no matter what transpired, the World Eater was still his brother.
So, it is done. Alduin, Dilon, the eldest, is no more. He who came before all others, and has always been. Happy? No, I am not happy. Zeh mahi lost, ondul bormahu. Alduin was once the crown of our father Akatosh's creation. But I cannot celebrate his fall. Zutiraz ach ochma. He was my brother once. This world will never be the same.
Is it far-fetched to believe Alduin feels the same way about Paarthurnax? Also, he is certainly much better suited to kill him during the battle at the throat of the world, even with the DOVAHZUL present, yet the most he does is bloody him up slightly and fly away after Nax's and the DOVAHZUL's victory. Furthermore, he is flying around KUHLMAN'S, resurrecting his old allies. He is well aware of where Nax is. He could have easily sent several of his Mirkalle, loyal champions, to destroy him, but he doesn't. And even when he does threaten to kill him, he never acts on it. Or perhaps I am simply too sentimental and extremely weak for some epic brotherly bonds. Nonetheless, if this is true, it would make the World Eater a more interesting and sympathetic antagonist. If only we got more insight to his character. Nu amativ. Let us get back to the topic at hand. Another theory is that Paarthurnax has aged due to spending thousands of years as Tiid-Ahraan at a time wound, and not just any time wound, but the very first one in known history, created by Feldir the Old, as he used the Elder Scroll to banish Alduin from the Merithic era and send him forward in time. Nax may have something to add himself.
Tiid-Ahraan, Time was shattered here because of what the ancient Nords did to Alduin.
As Paarthurnax shared, a Tiid-Ahraan is a location where time has been shattered, a tear in the fabric of space itself. Time wounds are similar to dragon breaks in nature and are characterized by a slight scintillation in the air or a whirlwind emitting golden and purple light. One can clearly see the exact spot where the fabric had been torn at the Monahven, and it would not be improbable to assume that no matter how relatively small the area itself may appear to be, it is possible it affects the entire summit. DOVAHZUL may be eternal and everlasting, but as the children of the dragon god of time, they have a very special connection to it. It is difficult for them to even vaguely grasp the concept of mortality, and yet...
The Dove are children of Akatosh. Thus, we are specially attuned to the flow of time, perhaps also uniquely vulnerable.
Divines know, or perhaps even they do not, what kind of effect the time wound would have on a Dova who is, in Nax's own words, uniquely vulnerable to the flow of time. It is entirely probable that the Tiid-Ahraan is the reason for Paarthurnax's otherwise unnatural aging. Or if he has been wounded by Alduin or somebody else, it could also be argued that the time wound slows down the healing process as well. We know not much of how Tiid-Ahraan truly work, however neither of these theories seems too unlikely given what we discussed so far. The next theory, which is a personal of mine, although perhaps not as likely as the rest, is that his battered appearance is a consequence of him denying his nature for thousands of years. The state of the psyche and the soul affects how one looks, and denying the desires of both could reflect through the physical body. Even if we momentarily forget about Dove's innate desire to dominate and merely take into consideration their free-spirited nature to roam the skies, fly to whichever place they want, this by itself could cause a change in appearance. Perhaps Paarthurnax's wings are so damaged because he barely uses them. While Nax is not restrained to the Monahven like Durnevir is to the Soulcairn, or arguably Drem is to Blackreach, he has rarely left the summit, except to visit Numinex in Dragon's Reach, which was a long time ago. I also wish to open a bracket regarding Drem here and clarify that I say arguably because we are unaware if he can actually leave and go as he pleases, and given Dove's expanded arcane abilities and the become ethereal shout at their disposal, perhaps he can actually fly away and come back as he so desires. Closing bracket. Speaking of Drem, whilst recording footage for my research regarding Sissel, I noticed that his teeth appeared to be damaged and his wings slightly tattered. Intrigued that I could have stumbled upon more evidence to support this personal theory of mine better, I decided to look into this enigmatic Dova, as well as compare his appearance to that of other Dove. Unfortunately for me, my speculations regarding his battered look turned out to be incorrect. Drem is an ancient Dova, and all representatives of these particular DOVAHZUL share the same colors and scales. Also, upon a closer inspection and in better lighting, neither his teeth nor his wings appeared as damaged as I initially thought them to be. The reason I'm telling you this at all is that in spite of turning out to be wrong about his appearance, I uncovered something else about Drem that is quite interesting and could very well tie into my theory. Despite not suffering any changes to his appearance, Drem's power appears to have waned, and rather drastically too. To begin, unlike other DOVAHZUL, including ones weaker than their ancient brethren, he does not use his wings to his advantage in combat, but rather crawls on the ground whilst attacking. This is an odd choice for a Dova to make, considering he would be much more vulnerable, and not only that, but other Dovahe, regardless of their power, will only linger on the ground if they have already been badly wounded. Why would Paarthurnax choose to expose himself to even more danger by crawling about, snapping his jaws at his opponents, instead of flying above them, raining Yol, fire, upon them? Also, he is much weaker than the other ancient dragons. His damage is meager compared to what the oldest amongst the Dove can do. What this particular Dova is doing beneath the earth in a Dwemer city is a mystery, one that has too many loose ends for me to even attempt to solve, or does it? But I believe it is safe to say that he has not seen the skies of Skyrim for quite some time. This in itself goes against the nature of Dove, and whether he remained in Blackreach by choice or he was captured there similarly to Numinex is anyone's guess. But it seems being away from the surface for so long has taken its toll on his physical prowess and his overall power. By not remaining a wing in the skies of Keizal, Paarthurnax is in a way also denying his nature, is he not? Durnevir is a special case, which is why I am not going to comment on his physical appearance or unusual circumstances. Another thing to note is that dragons, despite being extremely mistrustful due to their intelligence,
Onikan Niov, I would not trust another Dova.
is that they are still social creatures. That Paarthurnax has maintained his sanity during his time in isolation is all but a miracle, a product of strength of character and will, and mindful meditation. Numinex was driven insane during his captivity, and we cannot conclude anything regarding Paarthurnax, for we cannot hold a fruitful conversation with him, at least by mortal standards. Could this isolation, which is yet another way Nax denies his nature, have had such a negative effect on him as well? While I have no further evidence to support this theory, the combination of these factors could have indeed aged Paarthurnax or slowed down the healing process of his wounds, even if the speculation is not as strong as the rest. The final theory is a fruit of the wonderful mind of James, who very thoughtfully contributed to my speculations regarding Sissel's unusual abilities, using incredible analogies from the lore regarding Shor, as the Nords refer to him, also known as Lorcan amongst the elven races, and auri-el, whom more dogmatic theologists believe is one and the same with Akatosh, even if the latter is rather a product of Saint Alessia's merge of the elven and human pantheons into that of the Adric one, a schizophrenic amalgam of two opposing forces, as James so eloquently put it in his comment, between Shor and auri-el. He also points out that despite both Alduin and Paarthurnax being children of the dragon god of time, the former is more in line with auri-el, while the latter is more strongly connected with Shor. And if we consider Akatosh to be an antinomic concoction of Shor and auri-el, we have an even stronger basis for this speculation. In truth, this makes much sense, especially if we go way back to the very beginning, to Anu, the everything, stasis and order, and Padome, chaos and change. Then we have auri-el and Alduin versus Shor, change and stasis in constant conflict with each other, yet one cannot exist without the other. Is it improbable to claim Alduin and Paarthurnax are yet another example of this endless cycle of chaos and change versus stasis and order, respectively? But I digress before I spiral too deeply into the infinite abyss that is the lore and cosmology written within the Elder Scrolls. Our purpose here is to connect Nax and Shor. Shor, despite being a dead god and gone from the realm of men in the sense that he is no longer what he used to be before he met his demise at the hands of the elven giants, the Aldmeri pantheon at Red Mountain, still manifests in Mundus and the Therias, Sovngarde more specifically, which he created himself. Could Paarthurnax, as he is now, be his vessel in a manner of speaking? Nax was the first Dova to defect. It is precisely because he pitied men, because he felt empathy and remorse towards the mortals he previously tormented alongside his Zema, that Kinneret reached out to him at all. And Kine is known as Shor's wife and later his widow. Opening a bracket here, some call Alessia the wife of Shor as well. However, Kinneret is depicted as his spouse more often than Alessia, plus in regards to the slave queen, the nature of this saying is more likely metaphorical as opposed to literal, closing the bracket. The Greybeards, despite being masters of the Thu'um and DOVAHZUL in general, and having a son of Akatosh as their leader, worship Kinneret as their central deity, as opposed to the dragon god of time.
The voice was a gift of the goddess Kinneret at the dawn of time. She gave mortals the ability to speak as dragons do. In the contemplation of the sky, Kinneret's domain, and the practice of the voice, we strive to achieve this balance.
Moreover, Nax's philosophy is centered around meditation, reflection, and taming of the base instinct, or in other words, around order, even stasis. Are the body, mind, and soul not completely still during the act of meditation when it is done successfully? I certainly know mine are when I meditate. Furthermore, the Greybeards do not engage in any political or mundane affairs. They have no hand in any changes that occur in the world below their secluded monastery, at least not until a Dragonborn comes around, and even then they are rather reluctant to get involved in anything other than the Dovahkiin's training. Thus, if Paarthurnax is in some way connected to Shor, despite being Akatosh's son, it would explain why he is aging. Shor is not immortal. He manifests in some ways in the realms of Mundus and Aetherius, as we mentioned before, and is a dead deity. If Nax, knowingly or unknowingly, connected himself to Shor by denying his nature and aiding men in their time of need with the help of Kine, Shor's wife, could this have affected his once unchanging body? In his comment, James even suggests that Paarthurnax could be a Shezzarine in his own right, and through his actions it is quite a plausible idea. There are numerous speculations as to who the Shezzarine is during the eras we experience in the games. Another insightful viewer under the username ADOMOOPP6407 asked me to do a research about Manimarco, the King of Worms, being the possible Shezzarine, and gave me several great points to go by, to name one. Kogan Fafin Zak, thank you for the idea, Fadon. Shor manifests in intriguing ways. Why could he not be connected to a Dova in spite of the seemingly oxymoronic nature of such a bond? Or even to a high elf, a supposed descendant of auri-el himself, if we take the theory about Manimarco being a possible Shezzarine into consideration. The truth is, the cosmology and lore of Nirn and beyond is truly complex and enigmatic. Many ought that may appear to be impossible and mutually exclusive could very well come to be. Unslat Kogan James, thank you once more for allowing me to include your insightful theory in this video and expand on it. I do hope I did it at least some justice. As I said in my answer to you, I never would have made the connection between Shor and Nax myself. Hin hadrim loskin zon, hin oni kan lot. Drem Fadon. And it appears I have run out of parchment to consult. Today's research has come to an end. Wounded or aged, affected by the Tiid-Ahraan he resides at, the denial of his own nature, or even by Shor, Paarthurnax's appearance is a paradox. Despite the deep and perceptive conversations we can have with him, this particular topic can never be brought up, and it is uncertain that even Nax himself knows the answer. But Fasni, Master Paarthurnax, to me and many others, you are still amongst the most Brit, the most beautiful Dovahe to fly above the land. In any case, which one of these speculations do you deem to be the most likely? I myself believe that while Nax's looks could have been affected by a combination of all of these factors, the most likely reason for his battered appearance is the Tiid-Ahraan, the time wound he resides at. And I like to think that if he left it for a long time, his body would slowly recover from the distorted flow of time there and resume its original appearance. If you have your own theories to share, please do not hesitate to tell me of your personal thoughts and speculations. It is always an utmost honor and pleasure to exchange knowledge with you, Difadone. Arkun Slatkogan, thank you all for the overwhelming and humbling support. This response to my work is not something I would have even dreamed of. I am thrilled to have you here, and I do hope you enjoy the future journeys we undertake as much as I enjoy organizing them. For the next one in particular, I strongly advise you to pack light clothing and some eye protection, for the ash storms in Vardenfell can be quite a nuisance and it is rather hot beneath Red Mountain. But until then, Lok Thum.
Sum